Eastern Iowa has its own courtroom connection to the OJ Simpson trial. TV9 first introduced you to Troy Peters, an Iowa City man who was in the courtroom during the early days of the OJ trial.
TV9's Lori Johnson joins us live now from Troy Peters' living room with our continuing team coverage. Lori?
As we first told you last week, Troy Peters thought the jury would deliberate 3 to 4 days. He also thought the jury would find OJ Simpson guilty. This is Troy Peters' reaction to the verdict as it happened.
OJ Simpson not guilty of the crime of murder in violation of Penal Code Section
not guilty.
A felony upon Nicole Brown Simpson, a human being, as charged in count 1 of the information.
No way. I cannot believe this.
California, County of Los Angeles,
I cannot believe this.
California versus Orenthal James Simpson. We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of the crime of murder.
No way.
In violation of Penal Code Section 187A, a felony.
Oh my God.
As charged in count 2 of the information.
I cannot believe this.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, further find this.
Troy Peters joins us live in his living room now. You're obviously surprised.
I was totally shocked when I heard that verdict. At first I thought, I don't think I'm hearing this right. This is, I was totally waylaid by this decision.
What do you think about the short deliberation?
Well, I thought the short deliberation meant that we'd get a guilty verdict. I thought they all just, you know, they'd been hearing it for a year and they thought he was guilty and they wanted to get it over with. I can't believe that. I knew it was going to be a short deliberation, but I was positive it would be guilty. But this really shocked me.
Now, you met Robert Shapiro and some other defense attorneys. Can you just imagine what they're thinking now?
I bet they're going to party tonight. I thought for sure that this would not be their time in the spotlight, but they've amazed a lot of people, and I don't know. I don't think justice was done today.
Thank you so much for letting us spend the morning with you, coming in here to your living room.
No problem.
Thanks so much. Scott and Kelly, back to you.
Thank you, Lori. Lori Johnson reporting live from Iowa City. There's never been a trial like the OJ trial. It created a sensation. It also created a morbid industry of sightseers and souvenir sellers. TV9's Amy Taylor was the only Eastern Iowa reporter to cover the trial in Los Angeles. Amy continues our team coverage now with a look back at what some say was the spectacle of the century.
They were coming from all over the United States and all over the world to see where OJ Simpson lived and to visit the murder scene.
It's frightening and it's unbelievable.
I told him, keep driving, we're almost there.
Yeah. We were on Bundy. We heard the name Bundy before, so we drove down Bundy for a while.
But we see it on TV, CNN.
Does it look like what you thought it was going to look like? No, it's a lot smaller. Yeah. Real small.
Since the night of the most infamous murders in U.S. history, every detail of Nicole Brown Simpson and O.J. Simpson's lives have become part of our national conscience. A national conscience sometimes driven to extremes to get a first-hand glimpse at the murder scene. They came from as far away as Arkansas to see it.
I wanted to come see for myself. I've been watching it for like 8 months, and so I wanted to see everything up close in person.
After this crime took place, this neighborhood, for weeks and months on end, weekend and during the week, was just flowing with tourists. It was a major stop, a major tourist attraction.
The O.J. Simpson trial draws together some of the most powerful legal minds in the world. Outside the courthouse is another cast of characters.
Not even one word of remorse from O.J. Simpson. Not even a tear. Not even an expression of grief.
An entire cottage industry has sprung up around the trial of the century.
Another day at the office.
Jamie DeMadoff calls himself an entrepreneur. He calls his business disaster wear.
I've had some comments from people like, you know, why you capitalizing on this, blah, blah, blah. And, hey, you know, people like this kind of stuff. They collect them, that's why they buy them. I'm not telling people, hey, buy my shirt.
O.J. Simpson button.
Meet Eddie D. Originally from New York, now he uses his streetwise ways to sell buttons.
I do buttons for all kind of events. The Pope, Woodstock, yeah.
You make a good living doing this?
Yes, I do. Very good living.
But now, all those who made a living off the tragic story of Nicole Brown Simpson Ronald Goldman and O.J. Simpson, will be left to search elsewhere to spend their time and money. Amy Taylor, KCRG TV 9 News.
For their part, jurors in the O.J. trial got paid just $5 a day for performing their civic duty for 261 days of sequestration. And already authors have written 9 books about the trial of the century, and certainly there are more on the way.
Well, what do you think? Did O.J. Simpson get a fair trial?
Up next, we'll tell you how to take part in our TV9 City Line viewer poll. And we'll also take your phone calls live on the air for Attorney John Bickle. Call us now on Newsline 9 at 365-9999. Stay with us for continuing coverage of the O.J. Simpson verdict on your 24-hour news source, KCRG TV 9.
Welcome back to this special edition of TV 9 News. For those of you just joining us, the jury in the O.J. Simpson trial found the former football great not guilty.
We wanted to know how you would have ruled if you were on the jury. Once the murder case went to the jurors, we began an exclusive TV 9 City Line viewer poll. Here are the results. 66%, or 6,370 of you, would have found O.J. Simpson guilty. And 34%, or 3,325, would have reached a not guilty verdict.
And now we want to know what you think about the O.J. trial. Do you think O.J. Simpson got a fair trial? To take part in our TV 9 City Line viewer poll, call 363-7000 in Cedar Rapids, 337-7000 in Iowa City, 235-7000 in Waterloo, and 556-7000 in Dubuque. And then enter category 9999. It is a free call in these cities and the cost of a short distance, long distance phone call in those other areas. We'll have the results of our exclusive poll tonight at 10 o'clock on TV 9 News Nightcast.
Attorney-at-law John Bickle joins us once again today. John, do you think O.J. got a fair trial?
I think he did. Certainly O.J. thinks he did. The prosecution has the burden of putting its case on. They have the burden of showing that he was guilty of the crime charged. And I know of no significant evidence that they were precluded to put into the case by virtue of a court ruling. They made the decision, for instance, not to show the chase that occurred immediately after the crime was discovered involving O.J.'s efforts to flee on the freeway. However, that was a tactical decision. They decided what evidence they wanted to put on. They put it on, and obviously the jury felt it was insufficient. I see no significant problems in terms of the fairness of the trial for O.J.
All right, I guess we have a phone caller. Go ahead with your question for John Bickle.
Are you there, caller? Apparently we're having some technical difficulties putting the caller through on the line, and we're taking your phone calls now for John Bickle. Again, that number is 365-9999. You can call us with any questions you have about the verdict or the case, for that matter. We have our caller now on the line.
John, you mentioned something about the chase, and the prosecution did not use it. Do you know why? There's a bunch of speculation about why.
It's my understanding that some of the collateral evidence that would have come in the cross-examination of the evidence relating to the chase would have been more detrimental than was the fact that O.J. attempted to flee. At least that was what the prosecution would have used that departure in trying to show.
Okay, I understand we have our caller now on the line. Hello there.
Yes, I'd like to know from Mr. Bickle, there's some things that I'm not understanding about how evidence is presented. For example, the chase that we are talking about. Also the items that were in the Bronco. I understand there was a gun, some form of disguise. There was a passport and some extra money. Who tells who that evidence cannot be given to that jury? And I would also like to say that if I were a juror who had sat in there for 9 months and found out that information later on, I would be over the bench with Ito's beard in my hand, you know?
Okay, you heard the question.
I did hear the question, and that observation about the fact that there was certain evidence that wasn't heard by the jury, and the outrage or concern that a person might, sitting on the jury, feel after the jury was over and learning that is a very legitimate question and a very legitimate concern. With respect to the decisions concerning what evidence to put on or not put on, those are issues that the prosecuting staff decides. I was fascinated to hear the acknowledgement of the number of attorneys that worked on this case for the state of California. There were more attorneys that worked on this case than we have in Lynn County that are prosecuting cases for the Lynn County Attorney's Office. And this was just one case. Those people collectively had input in deciding what evidence was going to be presented to the jury and what wasn't. Additionally, they had the benefit of experts who consulted with them, jury consultants such as Tom Sanito, who we saw earlier, to give them input in what would play to the jury well and what wasn't. The decision as to whether to put on the chase scene, the decisions concerning the gun and the disguise and the passport that were found in the Bronco, all of those would have been made by the prosecution. There's a big question as to whether the gun would have even been admissible, as no gun was used in this crime. So what relevance did it have, and did the prejudicial effect of having that gun outweigh any probative value that it might have had? So all of those things factor into the decisions that the prosecution made regarding what to admit and not admit.
Okay, we have another call on the line. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I was looking at the race thing, that I think whites think he's not guilty and blacks thinking that he was, whites thinking that he was guilty and blacks that he's not, that neither side was totally looking at the case from the standpoint of the judicial system. When they said that there was a mountain of evidence, I personally think that all that evidence was dispelled by the facts from the defense side of the point. They broke down all of that, just like the blood. Well, of course there's going to be OJ's blood because there's some blood missing. The blood that they found was such small amounts, it wouldn't even be a tenth in a vial of blood. So I'd like to ask the lawyer what he thinks about the defenses breaking down more than just a little piece of that mountain as far as the race side was with Furman. I don't think it was decided on Furman. I think there was many more issues that the defense destroyed in their defense experts that they put on.
And I apologize, but I didn't hear all of that question.
Okay, basically he wants to know your views on whether or not the defense did a proper job in breaking down this mountain of DNA evidence that they had, and he feels that the defense did their job in breaking down that mound of evidence, and that it wasn't Mark Furman who ruined this trial.
Right, he said it wasn't racially motivated, their decision, that he thought that race didn't play a part.
Right, and he wanted your response to that.
Well, I think with respect to the DNA evidence and the defense case that challenged the adequacy of that evidence, clearly one must presume that they were successful. The verdict speaks for itself. They found OJ not guilty, so they had to decide that the DNA evidence presented by the state was not adequate to convict him. With respect to the racial issue in the case, as indicated, I hope and I pray for our system of justice that that did not play a factor in the outcome in this case. It can't if we are to have a future in the kind of government and the system that we have in this country. I think that the interviews and the comments made by the jurors in the future are going to be very helpful in answering that question. I noted with great interest that the prosecution was careful not to characterize this as a racially motivated outcome. And I think that in weeks to come, after we've had an opportunity to digest this and to think about it a little more, we will be able to dispassionately consider that at greater length.
It'll be interesting to hear what they have to say. We have one final call. Go ahead with your call for John Bickle.
I was just wondering, what about Ronald Goldman? Everything has focused on OJ and Nicole. Ronald Goldman was murdered also.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just curious to know, why was there never any question about his relationship to OJ? You know, everyone's asking if OJ got a fair trial. What about Ronald Goldman?
Did you hear that?
I heard that. Ronald Goldman was not on trial in this case. Clearly, the implications of the question, what about the victims in the case? I think that this case, by virtue of all the media attention that it has received, has clearly focused on the victims, and I think that that is very appropriate and very important. Never has there been a focus taken off of the fact that two people were brutally murdered. And it's very difficult sometimes to understand why we had the outcome we did when there was such compelling evidence if we just look at one side of the evidence that was produced. However, when we have a defense that only has to show that there is reasonable doubt, that there's a reasonable question in the minds of the jurors, I think that we have to accept as what guided the outcome here and why we had the result that we did. There were two tragic deaths, and those are unexplained. I found it interesting that the prosecution indicated that they are not going to reopen the investigation. I think that that was a knee-jerk reaction to what has occurred and a great disappointment on the part of the prosecution. It'll be interesting to see if further deliberation changes their view in that regard.
Attorney John Bickel, thanks for joining us today for your analysis. We appreciate it. How did OJ Simpson react when the verdict was read? Let's show you right now.
Mr. Simpson, would you please stand and face the jury? Mrs. Robertson.
Superior Court of California, County of Los Angeles, in the matter of the people of the state of California versus Orenthal James Simpson, case number BA097211. We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant Orenthal James Simpson not guilty of the crime of murder in violation of Penal Code Section 187A, a felony upon Nicole Brown Simpson, a human being, as charged in count 1 of the information. Superior Court of the State of California, County of Los Angeles, in the matter of the people of the State of California versus Orenthal James Simpson. We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant Orenthal James Simpson not guilty of the crime of murder in violation of Penal Code Section 187A, a felony upon Ronald Lyle Goldman, a human being, as charged in count 2 of the information. We, the jury, in the above entitled action, further find the special circumstance that the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, has in this case been convicted of at least one crime of murder of the first degree and one or more crimes of murder of the first or second degree to be not true. Signed this second day of October 1995, Juror 230. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, is this your verdict? So say you one, so say you all.
Yes. All right, counsel, Mr. Simpson, would you be seated, please? Let's have it quiet in the courtroom, please. All right, Mrs. Robertson, would you please poll the jurors?
Poll the jury. Juror number 1, as to count 1, is this your verdict? Juror number 2, as to count 1, is this your verdict? Juror number 3, as to count 1, is this your verdict? Juror number 4, as to count 1, is this your verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 5, as to count 1, is this your verdict? Yes. Juror number 6, as to count 1, is this your verdict? Yes. Juror number 7, as to count 1, is this your verdict? Yes. Juror number 8, as to count 1, is this your verdict? Yes. Juror number 9, as to count 1, is this your verdict? Yes. Juror number 10, as to count 1, is this your verdict? Yes. Juror number 11, as to count 1, is this your verdict? Juror number 12, as to count 1, is this your verdict? Count 2. Juror number 1 is to count 2. Is this your verdict? Yes. Juror number 2 is to count 2. Is this your verdict? Yes. Juror number 3 as to count 2. Is this your verdict? Juror number 4 as to count 2. Is this your verdict? Yes. Juror number 5 is to count 2. Is this your verdict? Yes. Juror number 6 is to count 2. Is this your verdict? Yes. Juror number 7 as to count 2. Is this your verdict? Yes. Juror number 8 as to count 2. Is this your verdict? Yes. Juror number 9 as to count 2. Is this your verdict? Yes. Juror number 10 as to count 2. Is this your verdict? Juror number 11 as to count 2, is this your verdict? Juror number 12 as to count 2, is this your verdict? Inspector.
All right, the clerk is directed to record the verdicts as read. The parties agree to waive reading of the verdicts as recorded. Mr. Cochran, do you waive reading of the verdicts as recorded? Yes, Ms. Clark. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to at this time take this opportunity to publicly thank you for the service that you've given to us. The burdens that we've placed upon you were enormous, and words can't begin to express the debt that we owe to you for the time and patience and exertion that you've given to us during the course of this case. I will have an opportunity to meet with you privately later, and I'll give you my private comments when we have a chance to meet.
A very emotional day on both sides of the fence. We thought you might find it interesting to hear O.J. Simpson's horoscope for today, as written by Gene Dixon in the Gazette. Complete old business during the morning hours. Your warm personality and fun-loving nature continue to make you popular. We urge you to stay with TV9 and ABC News for continuing coverage on the Simpson verdict. We will have full details on the verdict and reaction tonight on special editions of TV9's Live at 5, ABC's World News Tonight with Peter Jennings, and TV9 News at 6. And because of the Simpson verdict, ABC has changed its prime time programming tonight. At 7 o'clock, it's Home Improvement, followed by Hudson Street at 7:30. Then at 8, be sure to watch Murder 1. And at 9 o'clock, Peter Jennings will anchor a 1-hour special report on the Simpson verdict. Then stay tuned for a special edition of TV9 News Nightcast with a full wrap of the verdict, followed by ABC News Nightline at 10:35 tonight.
Well, that wraps up the special edition of TV9 News, but stay with us. We'll have continuing coverage of the Simpson trial throughout the afternoon and tonight on TV9 News. I'm Kelly Schultz.
And I'm Scott Sanborn. Stay with your 24-hour news source, KCRG TV9.